Welcome to the Orykl Podcast, where we ask the big question, hey universe, what's going on? I'm your host, Huenu Solsona, and today we are exploring another fascinating spiritual journey. Let's get started. Everybody, it's Huenu Solsona here. We are on the Orykl Podcast, hey universe, what's going on? And today I'm so excited to welcome Lewis Brown Griggs, who is going to tell us his experience. He's actually had 3 NDEs, not just one, but 3. It's absolutely fascinating. We've been chatting, also an amazing guy, fellow Leo. So, Lewis, it's so wonderful to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. And when you say I had 3, I've learned I have to say, yeah, I had to get hit pretty hard to learn what I've learned. One should have been enough, but I'll share with you
It's
all the
almost like I'm a
amazing
bit
experience.
jealous. I would love to have, and obviously I don't want to have had gone through whatever that is, but just the idea of having that experience of having died and come back, I'm a little bit jealous in that sense, right? So, but I'd like to hand over to you, and you can go ahead and tell us, the first, second, and third, and
All
yeah,
right.
we're ready to hear it.
I will, and I'll be as brief as I can so that you can ask questions. And I'm not going to have any more. My wife said that's enough. I'm not a cat. I do not want 9 near deaths to do.
Hope so. Hope so.
Okay. So here's what happened. It was in about March 77. That's how long ago I had my first one, right after I moved here to the San Francisco area in California in the US. And I was about 29 years old. And I had grown up in Minnesota, the state in the northern part of the US, and at 14 generation, all Anglo from the Mayflower boat that brought us here and all of that. So by being raised under all of that uh, privilege in this continent, at least, and education and love and all of that, what came with it, unfortunately, was ethnocentrism, which meant I didn't know how to relate to other people outside of my tribe because they all had to learn how to relate to me. So that's my history. All right. So, given that that's the history, here I am in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I totaled my automobile at an intersection. And I'll never forget just leaving my body and going through what we call the tunnel all the way, high speed, not stopping to watch the accident, like many people can tell you, and not stopping to watch surgery or anything. I went high speed through the tunnel all the way to what I can only call the source. And I call it the source of all energy, all light, all love, all consciousness, and all knowledge. I'm serious. Now, science can't prove any of this, right? In fact, I was interviewed on Discovery Channel, and I thought, this was about 25 years ago, and I was so proud that this was going to come out. And when I watched it, I saw that they betrayed me because they used the interview as an opportunity to prove that my experience was debunked, that they could make similar experiences with drugs and electrical stimulation. And so science doesn't yet know why the memory I have is perfect when we thought memory was in the brain and the brain was in the body and the body was totaled with the car. But the truth is, I have perfect memory and the story never changes. And that is in the light. The very first thing I learned was, wow, if this is the source from which we all come, our souls, call them what you will, our spirit, our soul, our essence. If this is the source from which we all come, that means we have lived prior lives. And if you don't believe that, just imagine if it's true that we've lived prior lives, that means last lifetime, you who are watching were not in the body you're in now. And I was not in this body. Whoa. What does that do to your consciousness? That means next time I might be in a body like yours and you might be in one like mine. And so immediately I got, wow, we are all one at the source level of energy. Yes, if you don't like that, we're all human, etc. But we're all one. All right. I never knew that,
Yeah,
except we're all human. But that's not what I'm going much deeper than that.
get you.
And if you really trust we're all one, it breaks all the bias that we have about how weird you look to me and I look to you.
Mm.
What? Unless we look so similar and then I like you better. And if we don't, it's look at what happens. It's such a waste of human energy. Anyway, we're all one. All right. Well, as if that wasn't enough, I then heard a voice. Not everybody has that experience. There are books called Conversations with God. So call it what you will. This voice that, of course, spoke in whatever language I needed it to speak in and sound like I needed to hear it, as would be any voice that you would hear. All right. The voice I heard said, Lewis, quote unquote, you were called here to have this conversation and to be sent back because you're not doing your work.
Mm.
Whoa. And I thought, I've been doing my work all this life. I know I'm lucky and privileged. I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And the voice said, no. What is it that keeps you from being, not doing, all you're capable of? Being, not doing. And I'm going, being. I never thought about that because I could do whatever. What keeps you from being all you're capable of being? And I had to go very deep and tell them what I've sort of already told you now. I wanted to make it short, which is, wow, the way I was raised, I was told by loving parents, we are all one under God. But here, where I grew up, you're better. You're better than everyone else. That doesn't mean your soul is better. It means the body you're in is privileged and better. You have more opportunities. So, noblesse oblige, you must give back and you must serve. Well, that's great and very intentional. But the mere thought that I was raised as if I was better than you made me very awkward. I never was arrogant. I felt that makes no sense because I noticed everybody else had to learn to talk my language and how to relate with me because we were the dominant group where I grew up. Now, all over this earth, the dominant group doesn't look like me. So I try to help people with no shame and no blame understand that we're either all a little guilty of it because you think your people are better than those other people. It's human, it's tribal, it's natural. Imagine if we were all an African tribe and we never saw the other one that grew up 50 miles away. And suddenly we see them, we go, I don't feel safe. Okay. It's all natural. And we need to learn to drop it unless it's important. All right. So that's what I learned in the light. And when my answer was, I don't know how to relate to anybody different than I am, the voice said, well, then that's your work, Lewis. And I was sent back down high speed through the same tunnel. I remember coming back into my body like tight rubber gloves that surgeons have to wear until, yeah, I have to do that with my finger. I can't do it. So all of the light disappeared. And I was in this totaled automobile. I had no physical damage. And the ambulance arrived, and I went out and told the ambulance, I'm fine.
Mhm.
And I never told anyone what happened for about 10 or 15 years. It was too weird back in the 70s. They thought, what are you smoking? It's all right. Your brain's damaged. You'll get over it. But life changed immediately. Doors started to open that I had nothing to do with. I didn't open the door. I got it. And when I went through the door that's open, and I'm sharing these things with you so that you can take whatever learning you can get in your own life, just like that. Doors opened without my having to be in control, without me knowing the answer, without me knowing what was behind the door or who was behind the door. But there was an opportunity to learn and to grow. So I ended up with my global wife doing cultural diversity training in the US before anyone else was doing it. And the TV and everybody wondered, how can a white yuppie wasp like you do diversity training? You're the ignorant one. And the answer is it was my global wife and all the others around us that we got together. But once I learned what I had to learn, then I could teach other white men like me without shame or blame. And that's what I've been doing for 40 years with videos, workshops, seminars, etc. And now just coaching. Okay. That's the first of 3 near deaths. Well, you would have thought that was enough because for 20 years, we did this work wonderfully all over the country of the US and somewhat internationally because it's needed everywhere. Okay. And it wasn't enough. I had more to learn. So after 20 years of doing that, then on Father's Day, Father's Day in the US, excuse me, on June 15th, 1997, with my bipolar daughter, like her bipolar mother, that's where that DNA came from. She was in a training. We had to put her in a different school. And after 2 years of 8th grade and 9th grade, because she ran away from school to live on the streets at 8th grade. So we put her in this training and up in the state of Montana near the Canadian border. And on graduation, I said, wow, look how wonderful you feel. And look, this has really helped you. See how wonderful you are? But her bipolar said, I'm not wonderful, Dad. Uh, I can't even explain it. But nevertheless, I said, you know what? I've taught you skiing and nature and hiking and outdoors, but I've never taught you whitewater river. So it's Father's Day and you've graduated. Can we go down the river? And she at 15 years old and her little brother at 10 years old that I took with me to the graduation said, of course, Dad. And so we went down the river, and as the water got faster, my 10-year-old son's face looked like he was scared. And we will never forget this moment. I said, trust me, you're going to love this. And now what I'm going to tell you, I have no physical memory of. Okay. This was a story I had to be told. And then I'll tell you the out-of-body experience. The story that had been told, and me and everyone, was as the water got faster, and my son looked really worried, I said, rest me. And a tree fell off the edge of the river and landed on my head and on my son's head, not my daughter's. And my son was had a fractured skull, and was drowned face down in the bottom of the raft where it was getting filled with water. And the raft was stuck because the roots were on this edge, and the tree was on top of my head on the edge of the raft. Okay. And my son was, as I said, face down, and they said, drowned. He's okay now. And I'm okay now. So you can listen to this with some humor and disbelief. Anyway, and the tree was on top of my head, fractured skull, blood all over. And I have no memory of this, okay? No regular memory. And they thought I was dead. So the out-of-body experience was somehow not in what we call memory or sensitivity. I didn't know this was true. I'm telling you, out of body, or as I was interviewed later by a trauma therapist and hypnotized right on stage in front of all the other trauma people. I was used as a guinea pig, and he hypnotized me, and he said, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? And I said, take me back to the river where the accident happened and help me remember what happened, even though trauma doesn't allow the body to remember the worst experiences. Okay. And it worked. And out of my body, being hypnotized, I got not a visual memory. I got a memory of a feeling, of a consciousness. Like first, there were three of them. First, I am about to die, and I'm not going to die. I am not going to die. I am going to stay alive. Am I alive? And I am alive. This dream, I'm alive with blood and fractured skull. I'm okay. And then I started crying because now that I'm alive, I can worry about where's my boy? Where's my boy? And I got, oh, he's alive. He's in my daughter's lap. And the story I was told later when I went back there 20 years later, I went back and the same guide drive 5 hours away. And he told me, he said, yeah, we picked your son up and we knocked the air out and we put him in your daughter's lap. And we said to her, he may die in the next 2 hours. Your job is to keep his eyes open by talking to him. And and then they discovered I was alive, but I was, what's the right word? I talked gobbledygook. My brain was so damaged that they had to tie me up because I was just, I couldn't control myself.
Yeah.
And they were afraid I could hurt myself or anybody or say stupid. I mean, and I don't remember that, but that's all right. But the second feeling I had was my son's alive. So now that I'm alive and my son is alive, now I can practice how I can recover and stay alive. Those are the consciousnesses I was given in meditation out of my body. Now, the next amazing learning was when they flew me to the hospital in San Francisco. I had to start 3 years brain injury recovery from traumatic brain injury in the hospital.
Wow.
But I was driven every day by my global wife, every day for the first year and a half, and then maybe 3 days a week. And in the last year, maybe once or twice a week. I got better and better. But in the beginning, I could not read, write, walk, talk. I did not know who I was, who those children were, who my wife was. A best friend came in and I'd go, who are you? And I remember now in human memory, every step of recovering, like when I was shown a picture of a giraffe and a truck, and they said, do you know what these are? And I went, I know the truck, but I don't know. I think I've seen this one in Africa.
Yeah.
Really? But the deepest learning I want to share at a spiritual level with you was just like in the light, I learned we're all one. Look what I learned here. Since the body couldn't walk or do anything, I'm going to use the metaphor of a hurricane or a tornado wherever you live, because you've learned that at the center of all of that wind is stillness, zero energy. If you didn't know that, at the center is zero energy. So picture now that your body, whether you've had the flu or a surgery or a broken leg or cancer, I've had all those. That's another story. What I got in this case was the body is not working and the brain is not working. But you know what? At all seven chakras, if you know what those are, at my core, at my essence, at my soul, in the center of this entire thing called a body, I am 100% light, love, energy, and spirit, and so are you.
Yeah.
And so is every one of us, even if we're trapped by trauma or abuse or whatever else happened in our life. It's just around the soul, and the soul is not damaged.
Love that. Yeah.
So I'm fine. I went through all 3 years of recovery feeling so gracious for everything I learned every week that I hadn't learned the week before, because every minute I'm fine. So now when people ask me after all these accidents we've all had, how are you? I go, I'm fine. And now I'm so weird because my third one I'm going to tell you about is I almost died in the ventilator over COVID and I couldn't breathe and I was out of my body. Now I'm saying, are you fine? How are you today? I go, I'm alive and I'm breathing. How are you?
That'd be a nice answer. I'm alive and I'm breathing. How are you?
That's right. That's right. That's all that matters. The rest is
Yeah,
just happening.
right, right.
So that was Father's Day, June 15th, 1997. All right. Then the most recent one was in August, the month of my birth, in August of 2020. On February of 2020, I caught stage 3 cancer. So I had to do chemo and radiation. Oh, those are awful because they both try to kill. They can kill everything in the body, and that's their purpose. It was awful, but it worked. Stage 3 colon cancer. Okay. And it was a terrible experience. But in the 6th month of getting chemo, I caught the first COVID from the nurse. There was no vaccine yet, and I had to be tested to be positive to be allowed back in the hospital a week later. Well, by the second week, the virus is destroying our heart and our lungs and everything. And so I had the worst COVID-19 in early 20, but I caught it like in June, okay? June, July. And then I was put into the hospital and in ER, emergency, and then I finally couldn't breathe at all, so I was put into the ventilator. And I fought that because I had lost a family member under the ventilator, like too many of us have. 1,000 per day were dying all over. But then I was out of my body for 10 days. So the only way to keep that short, a lot of experiences happen, but the most amazing experience you'll appreciate was in the last 2 days when they told my wife on the second to the last day, uh-oh, his lungs have collapsed. I'm not sure we'll be able to bring him back. And they made the lungs, at least now they're 90% okay. You can even hear from my voice, it's not perfect yet. There, I can feel it in my lungs. If I take a deep breath, I'll cough only at the bottom, but 90% I'm fine.
Right.
And that almost did it. But the last day, my heart failed. And they told my wife, uh-oh, I don't know if we're going to bring him back, like at 2 a.m. But and I remember those moments. And I'm telling you, everybody else in the emergency room had died. I was the only one alive. And it's as if I was hanging on to one of those pull-up bars that you can either do 10 or 20 of, or you can't do any, or you try one. I can't do them anymore. And I hung on as if I was so high up. I wasn't watching again. I was so high in pure light. I was hanging on going, I know I could let go now. I know what it feels like to be able to let go and die. I also know what it feels like to not want to die. And I'm not saying you always have a choice, but I am saying you almost always have a choice. Don't let go. The mind, body, and the spirit does everything it can to live. Trust that. Okay. So I hung on and they saved me and I helped save myself. And I came back into the body again, just like before. And I was in bed for 3 months without being able to get out of bed. I lost 60 pounds, all my muscle, and they finally had to lift me up and help me eventually learn how to recover. And it took a year on the oxygen machine before I no longer needed it. But that experience up above the light saying, I have got to live. I got to live. I want to love my wife and our children. And I want to come back and do my work to help men learn what I learned, the gift, loving everybody
Yeah.
as long as they're able to love. That's it. Those are my three.
That's incredible. I mean,
Is
all
that
of them.
fast enough?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's absolutely incredible. And I've actually heard of a number of people that haven't had just one, but like two or three NDEs as well, which is really interesting, right? Do you think that we choose before we come into this life, that we choose to have those experiences, or do you think that it's completely
Can't
random?
answer. I don't. We've learned that we can only answer what our experience is and what we know to be true. Anything else is a guess, and we have to hear everybody else's experience. My experience was that I've had two prior lives, one with my existing daughter now,
Right,
one with my prior wife, and one with my current wife, three. And I know how to describe them. So therefore, my answer is I know my daughter chose to come into life with me because of what our prior experience was, and she knew she needed me to be her father. I don't, I don't have the experience of why I chose to come into this body,
right.
but I know that I must have.
Yeah,
And I lived because I know what my other lives were before.
right.
Or I was sent to be in this body for this life's learning. I don't want to be, science doesn't yet know any of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know that. I do know that I was at least I needed to have these experiences to get out of the life that this body brought me into.
right.
So
Yes.
whether I chose it or it was chosen for me, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it. And I love hearing these stories. I think it just opens people's minds for like questions and because we don't know, right? I mean, we only know what we know. We certainly know this physical world that we can feel with our five senses. And we like to measure, our brain loves to measure things and get proof of everything. But I like interviewing people that have had these paranormal experiences because it opens up my mind and hopefully people that are listening, their minds as to what else is beyond those five senses, the things that we can measure and prove, what is beyond that. And I think that there's enough, in my opinion, there's enough evidence of people that have had these experiences beyond the physical world that it's
That's
almost like
right.
there's the proof. How can people have had like all of these so
Yes.
similar experiences, especially on
And we have them and we have them all in different ways. I want all of you
NDEs?
who are watching to know whether it's drugs, deportation, accidents, a deceased loved one communicates with you, uh, when a child says, Mommy, before I came into your body, I thought I was going to be a boy, but I'm a girl now. Or what? And when they say things like that, believe them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
because they
my
stop talking.
children a
They
lot.
stop saying those things after they're teenagers. They're not, they have to be cool. So you'll only get those truths usually up until 8 or 9 or 10 before puberty begins and
Yeah,
consciousness. And so listen to them. They're true.
absolutely. Especially with children. Yeah, I really do. Also animals and cats, and my cat used to be able to see
Yes.
things. They're just
Yes,
like vibrating at a different frequency, so they catch things that are vibrating at that level. So, everything is
that's
vibrating.
right.
So we can only see what's vibrating in our
That's right.
visual reality. So
But
yeah.
they all know how to survive. They all have survival instincts, just like we do. Okay. And one thing I've learned that's worth each of you trusting, and that is every time you meet somebody, anybody, just notice first that when you look in their eyes, you can feel the energy within yourself and within the other either get enhanced. Oh, you look safe. I feel, I want to trust, I feel safe. And he or she will open and feel safe. Or if they don't, or you don't, that's okay. We all know how to socialize and say, okay, back up and give more space. But if you can feel it, rust it.
Yeah.
And it took, when you and I just met on the screen, it took about 10 seconds for us each to go, wow, I see you. So get past the body that the other person's in and see the energy in the soul, feel the energy in the soul to whatever extent you can. And after that, don't insult them by saying, oh, I don't see that you're a girl or a boy or white or black or Asian or your accent. After you feel safe, all the diversity we have are gifts to one another because your experiences are different than mine. And I can learn from yours and you can learn from mine because we're all one and uniquely different and at the same time. So what a gift we are to one another.
Beautiful. I love that. And it's such a beautiful thing to say to wrap it up because we're really out of time. But Lewis, it's been such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your insight. And we'll put links to how people can reach you below. How can they reach you if they want to?
Yeah, email is Lewis, Lewis, the British version, not the Spanish, at my last name, Griggs, Griggs.com, Lewis@Griggs.com, or go to my YouTube page and put Lewis Brown Griggs, and you'll get all the videos I made for free now to get to look at. You'll hear all my other stories. Those are the ways.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll hope to maybe host you another time soon. It was fascinating. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you.